When you think of Jeff Bezos, what comes to mind? Probably runaway success, right? Rocket ships, a business that completely changed the world. But what if I told you the real secret to his empire isn't just about winning? It's about a systematic, almost enthusiastic approach to failure. Today, we're going to break down how one of the world's most successful ventures was actually built on a foundation of spectacular flops. So let's start with the image we all have in our heads. Jeff Bezos, the untouchable titan of industry. I mean, he's a figure so successful, it's pretty easy to assume he's never made a wrong move in his life. And to put a number on it, get this. In early 2020, his net worth was a staggering $117 billion. That's a number so huge, it's kind of hard to even wrap your head around. It's the absolute peak of the mountain, right? The pinnacle of success. But that's only half the story. Because behind that astronomical number is an equally astonishing history of failure. And this is the part of the story that usually gets left out, but you could argue it's actually the most important piece of the puzzle. And what's so wild is the sheer scale of these failures. I mean, we're not talking about little missteps here. The Firephone, that lost over $170 million. An investment in a company called Living Social, poof, gone, another $175 million. And an early venture, drugstore.com, basically vaporized nearly $500 million. So that leads to the crucial question, how on earth can someone fail this big and still end up on top? Well, the answer really lies in his philosophy, which we can break down into a few key lessons. It starts with having a big idea, then having unwavering patience, a total customer obsession, and something he calls a strong heart. And this quote right here from Bezos himself sums it all up perfectly. Failure and innovation are inseparable twins. You see, he doesn't view failure as the opposite of success. He sees it as a mandatory ingredient. It's literally the price you pay for inventing something new. Okay, so let's dive into that first lesson, the big idea. It's this fascinating concept of having a goal the size of a galaxy, but being willing to start out in your garage. So from the very beginning, Amazon was never really just about selling books. His ultimate dream was space exploration. Seriously, he knew he'd need a massive amount of capital for that, so he basically worked backwards and asked, what kind of world-changing business do I need to invent to fund my dream? Amazon was the answer. That's the start big part. A goal so ambitious it sounds completely nuts. But the start small piece is just as critical. Amazon wasn't born in some fancy high-rise office. It started in a garage. He kicked it off with just $10,000 of his own money. And he was brutally honest with his earliest investors, who were his own family, telling them straight up there was a 70% chance this whole thing would go bust. He had a massive vision, but he started with grounded, realistic, humble first steps. Now, having a big idea is one thing, but seeing it through, especially in a world that wants instant results, requires another key ingredient: unwavering patience. It's all about sticking with your plan, even when it feels like the world is collapsing around you. Just look at this timeline. It tells such a powerful story. Amazon was founded in 1994, but it was anything but an overnight success. By 2002, a full 8 years in, the company wasn't just unprofitable, it was drowning in over $2.2 billion of debt. Most people would have given up, but Bezos stuck to the plan, and you can see what happened. By 2019, the company hit nearly $280 billion in sales. And that journey wasn't smooth at all. He had to deal with lawsuits from competitors who were trying to crush him. He had to navigate the dot-com bubble bursting, which, wiped out countless tech companies. At one point, things got so bad he had to lay off 14% of his entire workforce just to keep the lights on. So this wasn't just patience. This was active survival, driven by a deep belief in the long-term vision despite all the short-term chaos. So that brings us to the engine that powered all that patience: customer obsession. And this is where Bezos has a really interesting take. He says your focus should be on delighting your customers, not on trying to disrupt the market. So what's the difference there? Well, think of it this way. Chasing disruption is like trying to win a car race by just staring at the other cars. But Bezos argues that if you focus all your energy on building the best possible car for your driver, making it faster, safer, more enjoyable, you'll end up winning the race anyway, almost as a byproduct. The customer is the starting point for everything, not the competition. The Kindle is the perfect example of this in action. When it launched, the analysts and experts scoffed. They said nobody would ever give up physical books. But see, Bezos wasn't trying to disrupt the publishing industry. He was just trying to delight readers by giving them instant access to any book they could possibly want. And boy, did it work. Within just 3 years, Kindle ebook sales on Amazon actually overtook physical book sales. Okay, finally, all of this requires a very specific kind of mindset, which brings us to our last lesson, having what he calls a strong heart. This is all about being bold and learning to just ignore all the noise. A strong heart really rests on two main pillars. First, you have to be willing to be misunderstood for long, long periods of time. Bezos says that most of Amazon's big successes took 5 to 7 years to really pan out, and for most of that time, people just thought they were crazy. And second, you have to be bold and strong enough to fight for that vision, even when it feels like you're the only person on earth who believes in it. It's all about having unshakable conviction. So if you take one thing away from this, let it be this. Jeff Bezos didn't become the richest person in the world by avoiding failure. He did it by building a system, a philosophy that expects failure, learns from it, and gives him the resilience to just keep building toward that massive long-term vision. For him, failure isn't a bug, it's a feature. And that leaves us all with a pretty challenging question to think about. If Bezos is right, if failure really is a non-negotiable requirement for invention, then it forces us to ask ourselves, what are we willing to risk and what are we willing to fail at in order to build something genuinely new?